right of the people, baby.
To truly choose to love is heroic.
Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people. And we're going to have to put it back in the hands of the people.
It takes the willingness to stand by and do what has to be done when it has to be done.
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Off The Shelf Bookclub, episode 4, section 3. We'll be going over chapters 7 and 8 about culture and behavior from the book How to Be an Antiracist by Ibram X Khendi. And first, before we get into anything, we are going to start with our land acknowledgement.
The Off The Shelf Book Club wants to offer our utmost respect to those who came before us on this land. It is important that we protect and acknowledge the history of the indigenous people of America. Minnesota Makoche, which means the land of the water that reflects the sky, is homeland to the Dakota and Anishinaabe people. Minnesota, in its history, has taken a part in the genocide of Native people and multiple treaties that stripped them from their homelands. Where Off The Shelf Book Club resides is home of the Midewiwin people, which means dwellers of the Spirit Lake. Off The Shelf Book Club will do whatever we can to honor the Native people and their lands and do what we can to aid in land back.
All right, and then, so, Jesselyn, what did you think about the chapter 7 and 8?
I thought chapter 7 and 8 were definitely pretty interesting. I feel like chapter 7 in particularly, I think I liked the most because it had, I think, especially right now when there are a bunch of things happening in conversations around culture and Black culture in particularly, I feel like gives some, like, you know, he talks about his culture from where he's from in New York and stuff like that, and like having, you know, talking about like typical things that they wear and stuff and bringing a little bit of homage to that, bringing in like hip hop, a little bit of that, which was just nice to see, but also just having conversation about AAVE and Ebonics and style and things like that, and the negative connotations, as well as like why are we even looking at them in that way.
Right. I agree. I really like chapter 7 too because, like, I mean, it was my upbringing. I grew up listening to hip hop. I feel like hip hop was like the soundtrack to my life for a really long time. So it just came natural to me. And then growing up with, you know, on my dad's side, spending a lot of time with my dad's side of the family, it just, you know, that was a culture that I connected to too. And like, naturally, when as a kid having to like code switch, it made me realize I understood Ebonics at a younger age before I even knew what Ebonics was. Like, telling myself to naturally code switch, you know what I mean? I just think that was interesting. It made me consider like my upbringing of being around my white family and my Black family and learning how to go in between both spaces. Yeah.
And I think it's interesting too. He talks about, I think, like his first experience of culture being the Black church.
Oh, yeah.
Which I don't have any experience of that because I mean, I just didn't go to church, period. But
yeah. I mean, my experience going to church, I mean, that definitely was an experience, like, one of my first experiences, I think, of culture, too, because it's like, I don't know, though I'm not Christian, there's still a feeling I get listening to gospel music, like, there is or just even going into church and hearing the live sound, it's a powerful feeling, no matter what. And like, I don't know, it's just a connection I have always felt with it personally. even like when I was growing up, I just loved it.
Yeah.
And, just dreamed of being a part of something that, amazing,
Right. I think to kind of segue a little bit into our first question, as we talk about culture specifically, how can we create cultural innovation, mainstream, while preserving our culture? Or I guess, do we even create culture? Like, do we even create our culture mainstream? I feel like it's no secret nor hidden thing, right? Most of Black culture hits the mainstream and is widespread, whether it's language, music, fashion, like there's all different kinds of things, right? Like it hits this popularity, but then that also means that it's subjective to cultural appropriation and misusing of our culture and disrespecting us and our culture, and like people refusing to see the importance of things.
Yeah.
Because braids is a conversation every other day. That is incredibly irritating, right? Because it's just like you can tell somebody about 20,000 times the history behind the braids that we wear as Black people, and it gets dismissed.
Right.
Because everybody has braids. Exactly. Everybody has some type of form of style of braids that is important to their culture, their history, regardless of if you're European, you're Latinx, you're Native American, which is why it's important to adhere to those styles.
Right.
And rep your culture.
Not the cornrows. You wonder why your hair falling out. You know
right.
what I mean? You wonder why your scalp really, really hurting. You never recovered after that. Like, yeah, it ain't for you. And there are I think that until we really start to create anti-racist environments, I think it's safer to keep culture more sacred.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are too many vultures that are willing to fuck over people. Just and it's just we have to TikTok, I think, has been a gift and a curse in a way for people, because it has allowed all of us to connect with one another. It's allowed new bonds within the Black community to happen and create communities within all communities and new bonds within all communities. I think that that's important. But then what comes with that also is what becomes a trend and what we deem as the popular thing and where it comes from, and then a lot of the origins get lost within that. And that's the issue, because yes, we still have regional slang, we still have regional culture, but it's slowly becoming less regional. It's all kind of becoming one. You have people in New York using Southern slang or West Coast slang, or slime. Slime comes from Atlanta. Now you hear everybody
right
saying that. Some, no shout out at all, some white rapper from I don't know where, too slimy. Yeah, no, and that's not. And you have to understand and have the discipline and education to be in those spaces and respect the spaces. You can't appropriate.
Right.
You have to learn to be an ally. And first part of being an ally is shutting up and listening.
For real. Not enough people shut the fuck up.
Yeah. And take orders. Don't give. Like, especially when you're working within another community that is not your community, you do not have an true understanding of that culture. Yeah, you just, if you want to be an ally, don't be given orders. Take them from the people around you.
You should only be given orders unless somebody
tells
you to give the orders
right.
to other people. If somebody tells you, I need you to go over there, I need you to tell them white people to do this, that's when you give the orders. You go over to the white people, like if you're white and you say, you need to go do this.
Right. And don't, there just needs to be, if the true allyship is, learning how to work together and truly listen. I think that's, if you want to make culture mainstream, that has to be the main goal. But I think that that making culture mainstream in a way is leaning too much into this capitalistic society that we live in, because soon culture will become a commodity, and that's not what we want.
Right. And maybe mainstream isn't the word, but I guess shared, because I think that there's gatekeeping obviously has its
pros and cons.
Pros and cons, and its pros, as we see hip hop right now gaining back some of its more regional aspects after it got kind of mumbled, jumbled, and things like that. Some really amazing, great things have come out of it, specifically because people have clinged more to where they're from and that type of sound that was missing. When we completely gatekeep and we don't tell anybody about these things, then we completely lose them. And you can think of things such as I feel like hoodoo practices is a really big one, because I think it's hard for a lot of Black people to step back into that, because that was so hidden. And part of that is historical
safety
and historical context, right? Because root work was outlawed at one point in time because white people and slave masters thought that their slaves were going to get them.
Yeah, the Haitian Revolution really did a number on white folks.
Well, it wasn't just that, right? It was also
Nat
Turner and a bunch of other smaller rebellions, and just the fact that they also relied on our ancestors' root work to heal them.
Yeah. Because
they knew the importance of that to an extent. And so there was a lot of our ancestors that actively used their root work when their slave masters were sick to help heal. Mm-hmm. And so then that became outlawed, the conversion to African spirituality into Christianity. And when people would see you using those things that could cost you your life, and things like that nature, right? That all of a sudden it becomes hidden, and it becomes even indoctrinated in your head not to actually talk about those things. Yeah. And so then it gets lost, and then that becomes harder for people to kind of gain touch those roots and gain them back. Mm-hmm. And so, or recipes, food recipes in particularly, some people are never gonna have their grandma's banana pudding, for example, because that's all I can think of right now. Somebody might not ever taste that again once their grandma passes away,
right?
Because those recipes were never actually written, even if it's not written down, mm-hmm. right, just given.
Yeah.
to where somebody can now take that and give that to somebody else. We like gatekeeping in that way, then we no longer have a piece of our history, of our loved ones, of our things, and so that can be that's a part of our culture that can be an issue.
I think that that's not an issue. I think there's another issue within that, because I don't think that not writing those down is gatekeeping. I think not writing those down is just kind of a natural thing of what we do.
Well, I'm not saying writing them down specifically, just passing them on.
Well, and we do pass them on, though. I think the reason why they're not getting passed on as much is the breakdown of, like, black families or just overall families in general. Like, there's not as many multi-generational homes as much as there was back then. And that's how those recipes get passed down, is because you're spending time with your elders, and you see them cooking and you go like, oh, let me just go work with you, let me help you out on that. And that's how you learned it. Like, we're very, like, that's how we told stories, that's how we passed down lessons, that's how we do those things. And I think that this is going, like, that conversation as a whole that's a whole different conversation. The breakdown of the black family over, or not just black family, or just multi-generational people or multi-generational homes. But I think that's the issue more within that, because that's how we do things as people of color, period, is like, we pass it down by talking, having conversation.
Yeah, I'm also like including that. I'm not saying something has to be written down, which is why, like, I specifically just said, like, not necessarily written down, but like just sharing those things.
Yeah,
because those things aren't necessarily constantly being they're not being shared as much anymore. I think I just like a series on my TikTok keep popping up, this black woman, and I can't remember like her TikToks, but like name her specifically, is like going through black recipes specifically that have been left behind from a really long time ago, making them and seeing, like if they were left behind for a reason or not. Most of them look like absolutely delicious. Yeah. You learn the history behind certain things that come from, like, pineapple upside down cake.
That's my shit.
And like what came before, like, pineapple upside down cake, and what that looked like before. Look bussin', I can tell you that much. Right. I think I saved the recipe. Mm. Or like a caramel cake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But moving on to the second question, how does the work of our ancestors show up? How have our traditions breathed life into us? I think that that's really evident within so many things. It's really, I don't know, it's mind-boggling sometimes when you think about it. Like, even the famous, like, head nod, like, that, like, black men tend to do. I don't know if black women do it as much, but, like, it is just like a what's up, but it's like an acknowledgement. And that goes back to, slavery times. Or, like, the dap. Well, the dap comes from black people, you know what I mean? I think it comes from Vietnam GIs, black GIs in Vietnam. And I think music, you look at the dance moves. If you look at some of the hip hop dance move or dances that have went viral over, time, and you look at, or even just overall black dances that go viral over time, you can direct those, find a similar dance in Africa, similar moves in Africa, because it's like we're very connected still as a people. And like the kind of like what we were talking about before with the recipes, we're very what's the word? We do a lot of storytelling, and we're still like that. Like one of the main concepts of blues, R&B, hip hop is storytelling, rock and roll. Like that all comes from storytelling.
Yeah.
And I think that those are examples of how our ancestors continue to breathe life into us, and we can see how we connect still to the ancestors that were here in America, as well as the ones that were in Africa.
I think that I think it's in everything that we do, right, in so many ways. Because even he talks about, right, that we were able to hide our traditions so well, that's how they've been able to follow us throughout centuries of work, right? And he talks about specifically how racist Europeans and stuff just assumed that their European traditions and cultures were stronger because they couldn't find them. But we did that on purpose.
Right.
Those things were purposely hidden so that you wouldn't find them, because
right.
you don't need to know.
Yeah.
And so us being able to, and I think a lot of that has to do with us being able to make something out of nothing. Us being able to work through whatever it is, no matter what the issue is, because we've seen it through, and particularly, right, with Black Americans, right, we've been able to quite literally make something out of nothing.
Yes.
Whether it's
chitlins.
Just whether it's food like chitlins. I can't personally, but religion, food, just our culture in general, because there is such a distinct difference within African, within Black American culture, that you don't see very much anywhere else. We've genuinely created a culture that is special to us in particularly, that influences the world around us. And us being able to make something work the way that we were able to use the church in the way that we did, even with everything and all of that stuff, has been particularly important. They show up whenever they can, because we've been able to make something out of nothing.
Right. Jumping the broom.
Yeah.
We couldn't get married, so they did their own little ways of signifying their love. And I think in the fact that is still practiced today, I plan on doing that at my wedding. So it's a beautiful way that we, I think a lot of cultures have continued to make beautiful things out of the fucked up conditions America gives it. Another example, if I'm not mistaken, the reason why fry bread exists from Native Americans is because they were forced to use flour.
Yeah, because
right.
Native Americans' diets were forced to be changed, and so that's how fried bread, which is, I would think is a pretty big staple.
Right.
Today in Native American food.
Right. And that's just another example of the resistance continuing to live life to the fullest extent and continue to push their culture to the, continue to push their culture. And that's what we all have to do, and keep on trying to live as much of a normal life as we can. You know, bringing happiness to ourselves and making sure that we're passing that down to the youth, because they're going to be taking that on next, and we make sure that they know that it's important. And that's why community is so important too, is because that's where it all starts. Is as long as we continue to spread the love, is just like water in your garden, you know. It's just like water in a garden.
Yeah.
Should we move on to the next question?
Yeah, we move on to the next question.
Oh, you know what? I meant to answer this. So moving on to this next question, how has hip hop influenced our world? I want to actually connect this back to the first question that we had. I believe Ibram Kendi said something along the lines of he just brought up Big L, right? And I think that Big L is I wish he touched on it more, because I think Big L is a bigger conversation within this specific chapter, because Big L has a song called Ebonics, and it literally is just a rap about, like, it's dope the way that Kendi put it, because I almost wanted to disagree with him, but he compared, you know, like Ebonics, AAVE, to a different language. It's like it's another language.
Yeah.
You know? And the way that Big L is rapping to you, like, he literally he's giving you a translation. He's actively giving you Google Translate, dog, in the song. Here, I'm gonna pull up those lyrics because I forgot to tell this earlier. Ooh.
Yeah, I like how he talks about how, right, Ebonics and AAVE should be considered a separate dialect and a separate language, in the same way like patois is and things of like that, and how it's not, and instead it's just strictly just looked upon as not intelligent, when that's clearly not the case. I mean, you can say stuff, right, with, like, using, right, Ebonics and AVE, and somebody can be saying them in the quote-unquote proper English, right? We still get the same shit out.
Right.
Still the same shit. Except I could argue, like, you can argue that how we say things can reach further audiences, because it reaches people like you and I, when that proper English shit really only reaches, like, more educated white people, realistically.
And I know this might be a hot take for some of our, if anybody really likes English literature, but something that pisses me off is, like, growing up, I used to get told that ain't is not a word, right? But, like, all it is I am not mushed together, right? What the fuck that nigga Shakespeare do? Y'all niggas give that nigga, y'all give him praise all the damn time because, oh, he's such a great writer, which, you know, he was all right. But he does the same thing, and it's looked at as classic. And y'all not gonna look at that as, you're not gonna look at our version of that as a classic. And I don't know, the way that Big L breaks down, he, like, just a single line off of it. It's like Google Translate. When I'm lifted, I'm high. With the new clothes on, I'm fly. And if you take that out of context, like, lifted, what do you mean I'm lifted? Do you, like, you lifting weights or something? that could easily be taken as like if you're taking it very literal.
Yeah.
Or even fly, like, what you mean you want to play? Like, it's stupid. Like, there's a translation that genuinely happens. Because if I go and I talk to somebody, like, there's a lot of people in England that if we were to try to have a conversation, I'm going to be like, what did you just say? Because the different dialects, you could say.
Right.
Are so... It's it's like you don't understand. And there's so much nuance to it. So it's like a whole different language.
Yeah.
That's why, like, when people talk about, like, Puerto Rican Spanish, it's like the same thing. It's like that's almost a whole new language. It's so different compared to all the different type of Spanish or different types of Spanish that exist in South America. You know.
Right.
But I guess that's not really talked about how hip-hop influenced our world.
Well, I think it does, because you can also just talk about, like, there is a really big part about how Ebonics and AAVE has made its way into slang. And probably to an extent it's always kind of been there, right? What slang looks like, especially today, and how pretty much almost all slang that's used in terms of just like talk among generations is strictly Ebonics and AAVE. So like those things are specifically heavily used in hip hop, right? It's not used, right? I don't know where it's not used in hip hop. Like our language in particularly it's just there, right?
And I'm not agreeing with that dude at all. But the Kiss bassist, I want to say.
Oh yeah.
I used to call it like a ghetto language. That's a demeaning way to talk about it, but I would say that hip hop is like hip hop lyrics is a language of itself, and we could say that, and I think that it takes an immense amount of talent to create, those verses and to do it like that, because there is no other genre that does it like that. You know what I mean?
And he says it here that hip hop is had the most sophisticated vocabulary.
Oh yeah.
Of any American musical genre. Yeah.
I mean, to write a tough 16, you gotta be nice with it. You gotta have words at your disposal. To have words at disposal it takes a certain amount of brain power. You know what I mean? To just be able to think of those words on the fly that rhyme with each other and also make them make sense. To make it make sense.
Naturally poetic in its poetry, in its, I guess, I don't know, right? If you strip away the, I guess, music portion of it. I don't know if that's the right word. There's a better word for that. I can't come up with that, right? Is poetry, and you could look like you could analyze hip hop as poetry and get everything that you wanted to get from like a poetry unit, for example, in schools itself through hip hop in particularly.
And like something that is very similar to, like, I love the connection with like hip hop and steel pan. I'm gonna just draw this quick connection of how in the steel pan, for it to be confirmed as an official instrument, they had to play classical music in the UK in front of this these judges, right? And they had to play a classical tune instead of their calypso, their soca music, right? And they finally get accepted as an instrument, But when they did it before with their calypso and soca, they were told that it wasn't real music. And what hip hop has done on multiple occasions is that there have been rappers who have sat there and had Shakespearean sonnets. No, not take away my air quotes. Literal Shakespearean sonnets. I believe Nas has done one. I want to say Rhapsody has done one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's plenty of different rappers who have done sonnets because they're genuine artists. They're genuine writers. They make beautiful work, and it's some of the most impressive, I think, songwriting period, because they don't let the beat they're just like punching in. There's more lyrics to hip hop.
Yeah. And it's not surprising when, hip hop artists start with writing poetry, like for Tupac, for example, right?
Yeah, got his book.
His start with writing poetry. Like, that's not a crazy thought. You can't say that, I guess, as much with how hip hop has maybe, I don't even know how to explain it.
No, I think that there's still a lot of poets out there, because I don't really like his politics as of lately, but like Rod Wave, he definitely writes poetry. He makes poetry.
I guess maybe I'm talking about for the non-black people that have taken over hip hop.
Yeah, for them. But no, hip hop is still super black, though, I'd say. I just don't like the certain white faces that have taken over.
Yeah.
The certain white faces that have taken over have turned it like they're playing cosplay, in a sense. Like Eminem, you gotta give it to him to an extent. Bro did grow up in Detroit. Was Poe. He was Poe.
Yeah.
And being around a bunch of black folks too. And, I understand environments create, a lot of people are victims of their environment. Not saying that he's a victim of hip hop at all, but it's
hip hop comes from your environment.
Yeah.
It's people speaking about
hip hop is the storytelling of poverty in a way.
Right.
Because even you got hip hop, yes, hip hop is the storytelling of oppressed systems and poverty, because you look at China, you have Chinese rappers, you have Russian rappers, you have UK drill, and all these people are coming from the more poor areas. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I find that interesting. I mean, it's not. It's interesting, but I think it's beautiful in a sense, because that is what it comes from. It really reminds me, hip hop is the definition of Tupac's book or poem, "The Rose That Grew from Concrete."
Yeah. All right. For our next question, as we move into the next chapter, which is on behavior, and it talks about, I think a lot of what it talks about in that chapter is how we as black people are tend to be grouped into one, right? When somebody does something, in particularly when somebody does something bad, then we all are that. And so the first question that we have is, what steps can we take to stop the narrative that one black or person of color speaks for all of us? I think just the idea of we need to stop the idea of generalizing in itself.
Yeah.
I feel like generalizing today is the only type of community that we're willing to possess.
Damn. Yeah.
If we're being honest, now we want to be grouped in together and talk about each other.
Right.
When we try to generalize something, in particular, usually something negative. It ain't never something positive.
Yeah.
It's always it ain't never, black people in general are successful because look at Obama, or because I feel like he's someone that comes up a lot, right? Or like the multitude of different, right, black successful people, because my brain is blanking right now, right? It's never that. It's always Obama was a successful person, successful leader, or like Michael B. Jordan is successful. Like it is like individualized, and particularly with that.
Yeah.
But if somebody goes to jail and decides to commit a robbery, oh, it's all black people committing crimes. It just ain't even true. Number one. But then why is it all got to be all of us?
Yeah.
Why can't that one black person, or dare I say that one person just committed a crime and leave it at that? Cooking. I think like specifically honing in on his idea like being anti-racist is to specifically like, and he talks about just on the first page, right, to talk about the personal irresponsibility of individuals when things like that come up, right? Like I know he talks a lot about school specifically and whether or not black people or white people do well in school and who's smarter and etc. things like that, right? Instead of somebody doing poor in school and you, for example, saying that black people just don't do well in school, can sit here and say, well, this individual person didn't study enough, this individual person did not do this, right? Is how we, I think, move more towards that space. And also, like, if we can do that, then, like, I think that starts to mitigate the self-fulfilling prophecy that usually typically happens with that. Because if all you do is spew that black people aren't as smart as white people, right, which just isn't true,
right?
But then you can also look at statistics and technically see that that's what's like that quote unquote is a lot of times what's happening is that we're constantly told those things, and so therefore then we believe them, and when we believe them then we don't do the work to prove things wrong, and that becomes what most of the time we see.
I agree with you. I think something that we could do too, I'm not gonna put the blame on one thing. I'll put the blame on Jesse Jackson here. R.I.P. to him though. And this is no issue. I'm not saying this all has to do with him, but I don't like this quote that he said in, what was it? Oh, never mind. Oh, I misread that. Well, Eric Holder and Jesse Jackson. Eric Holder at an MLK birthday on page 92 and 3 at the bottom and top of 93. Eric Holder at an MLK birthday celebration in 1995 said, "You are costing everybody's freedom." Jesse Jackson told a group of Alabama prisoners that year, "You can rise above this if you change your mind." And he added, I appeal to you, your mother appealed to you, Dr. King died for you." And I think that those type of constantly putting the blame on these people, like, yes, there is probably a decision that they made that may have not been the best of decisions, but we also need to consider the fact of what environment is everybody in. What are the, like, we know that we live in still a very racist society because of the policies that we have. And even then, Jesse Jackson of all people knew that too. Mm-hmm. And to sit here and know that there is a system at play, and to say and to try and put blame on someone or to make someone feel guilt over Martin Luther King, when the same system that got them in the prison is the same system that killed Martin Luther King.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to quit that type of conversating of putting blame and pointing the finger at each other, especially at the younger, or at the not the younger, the less fortunate ones of us that weren't able to maneuver through the system and it caught them. Because at the end of the day, that's what a system is meant to do. Why are you blaming your brother or your sister or any of your family or siblings for the system doing what it's supposed to do? We need to be looking at the system at that like that. And yes, there may have been a decision, a mistake that they made that helped them get to where they were, but it was more than just that one thing. Because I can't remember this exact page, but he talked about it, how naturally we look at our white youth to give them second chances, to give them empathy, because youth deserves that. But specifically in our system and society, we usually only offer that to our white youth. But all of our youth needs that.
Yeah.
Everybody
absolutely.
needs that. That's just it, period. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing to give our white youth second chances. I just think that everybody deserves that. Everybody deserves that empathy. And we just need to start having different conversations around this. All right. So now we're moving on to this next question. How can we ensure that the words of our ancestors and previous leaders stay anti-racist?
Yeah, I think this question specifically comes from on page 104. He's talking about how his friend, and this is like basically the premise, like when we went through the first part of like my racist introduction, right? And he talks about the speech that he writes up. And so this is like almost like the backstory behind this speech, right? His friend convinces him to write this speech and enter this contest for Martin Luther King Day. And the prompt was, what would be Dr. King's message for the millennium? And he talks about how he started writing an anti-black message that would have filled King with indignity. And then, but what like really came now was write a bunch of stuff that really ended up being racist. And I think like also what stemmed from that, right, is that especially when we think about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., his words are constantly being misused to spew racist ideas that maybe we don't know that are racist ideas as first, right? Like this book really points out, right? Like he is like this idea of like, what would Dr. King say to people today? And it be all of these racist things that we wouldn't identify maybe as racist initially without the knowledge, but that are very much are. And like his words specifically are constantly twisted and turned to spew racist ideas. Like during, like I know when George Floyd happened, there was a lot of particularly like a lot of white people especially
Liberal
using
whites.
his
Liberal
words
whites.
about peace and how peace needs to be kept, because he was a non-violent, like his form of
Protest and activism
was non-violent. But what we tend to forget, and I think this is when like more of his work started to get out there to people was that he also said a bunch of things that genuinely, like, you, like, understood why people decided to riot, right? A riot is the
Voice of the unspoken or
or
something.
the unheard,
The unheard, yeah.
right? And like things like that. It's like, yeah, he had nonviolent actions, and at the same time, like, let's not be fucking crazy. Like, if we're constantly being denied justice, we're constantly being denied, like, or just people ignoring us, yeah, sometimes you gotta, like, shake some shit up so that people can understand that we just not fucking playing around no more.
Exactly.
Right? And, like, I know, like, there's been, like, a little bit of stuff of, like, his quotes going around when October 7th happened and this genocide in Palestine was more mainstream than I think it probably has ever been in reality. And there are some things going around because I think that there is, like, a video out there that does support, that does somewhat support Israel there, but I think the reality also, and I could be wrong, and there needs to be more research done on my part, but, like, Dr. King definitely wouldn't agree with what's happening now. He might think that Jewish people deserve a space to feel safe because what happened in World War II was horrendous.
Yeah.
But this is not what anybody fucking wanted.
Exactly.
Or I shouldn't say anybody wanted, but this is definitely not what he would have wanted, was to see Palestinian people be treated in the way that they are, especially because the Palestinian resistance in itself is so close and hand in hand with I would say the civil rights movement, but also in particularly the Black Power movement that came directly afterwards.
Yeah.
And so, like, that just, I don't think that he would have went for that, even if there are some things out there that might be I guess that might be showing, like, in support of that, right? But
Right.
do you have something to say?
Yeah, I do. I don't mean to cut you off. I don't, like, you can
You're
continue.
fine. You can.
I was just gonna talk about like, with Dr. King, with him agreeing with, like, an idea of Israel, right? I can understand. I think a lot of people, majority of people, understand that Jewish people have been attacked for, hundreds of years. So they do need to be protected, but nobody needs to be protected like this. Like, this isn't protection anymore. This is, from the start, I don't really think there was a real protection outlook on it, on how they went upon things. But we can also, I think we can agree that just like, yeah, what the Jewish community experienced during the Holocaust was a terrible, 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 experience that no human should ever experience. Along with, we also should not put other people through that because we're trying to protect the Jewish community, because that's not really protecting them. You're just creating more enemies for them. And that's the sad reality, because it's like, it's hard to separate the Israel from the rest of the Jewish community at this point, with how the media and propaganda is treating it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that can be really hard for some people. And also it's important to remember that, like, there is also religion attached to the ethnicity and
Right.
like it's like a really complex situation,
Right,
and so
right.
like and being able to separate that can be hard sometimes because of everything going on.
Mm-hmm.
And hard to remember, right? That not every Jewish person or somebody who follows the religion is going to sit here and be like, think that what's happening is okay.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think that I agree with you about how Martin Luther King has been just misinterpreted and has been turned into something that's not what his beliefs, true beliefs, aren't being pushed, especially towards the end of his life, because he was very, I think, in a way, not really optimistic about the future of America. Like, he was fighting for so long and wasn't optimistic about everything going on. Like, he had been doing all this work and seeing how much it was like, what, like, oh wow, I was trying to pull back the curtain and I'm not really liking what's behind this curtain. And it reminds me of a quote, and I think that there's a reason why this quote isn't as well known of his, is because of what he is saying behind it. And it is, we have fought hard and long for integration, as I believe we should have, and I know that we will win, but I've come to believe we're integrating into a burning house. I'm afraid that America may be losing what moral vision she may have had, and I'm afraid that even as we integrate, we are walking into a place that does not understand that this nation needs to be deeply concerned with the plight of the poor and disenfranchised. Until we commit ourselves to ensuring that the underclass is given justice and opportunity, we will continue to perpetuate the anger and violence that tears at the soul of this nation. And why do you think they're not using that quote? Because everything he just said is the reality that we see today.
It reminds me of like somebody used this quote, and I don't know who it is because I know I certainly didn't come up with it, but it's like you can, like, because at the end of the day, right, this isn't a battle between race, between gender. It's a battle between class. And somebody said that it was like you can convince a poor white man that they're better than anybody, really.
Yeah.
Right? The only thing that you might not be able to convince them of that is a rich white man. But like, that's the point, right? And so like that's truly what separates us. And I think like that's that quote genuinely like encapsulates, right, that there is a bigger, like, this burning house that we're talking about is that not only are they trying to separate us by those things, but then there's also this bigger thing that's just like class in general. And us integrating ourselves within that is just going to completely tear us down. And that's what we see today.
Yeah.
That's what we see today as prices rise, and our wages aren't changing, as the vast majority of money that was spent last year was by literally
I think it was
the
50%.
1%. Yeah. Because we actively can't afford to spend money.
Yeah.
Like there's an elephant in the fucking room that nobody's addressing. And that's what it is, because they've done such a good job at like being able to trick people into thinking on the basis of race and religion and gender and things like that, and creating a hierarchy that there's this whole thing that's allowing people to climb up in this way, and that's class, and that's money.
Right. And like in a perfect example of poor white people, when they have an opportunity to push down on someone, and even though it might be pushing down on them, they don't care. Because you look at what's going on right now with the recent bill they're trying to pass with the proving you're a citizen while voting, providing an ID Act. The SAVE Act, yes, exactly. Now you may think like, oh yeah, I don't want undocumented immigrants counting towards the vote, which is a fucking dumb idea because these are imaginary lines and nobody is illegal on stolen land.
They never did in the first place. They can't vote.
Right.
No, like they couldn't vote in the first place.
And that's the reason why you want this to pass. But who this is really going to affect is majority of white women and just women in general, because they are the ones who changed their last name and they have to go through extra hoops to vote, and it'd just be easier not to. And that is the issue. And you're willing to fuck over yourself to make sure these other people get fucked. And it's like you're shooting yourself in the foot. For what? For what? We all can live. We can all live. We can all coexist. Not with that attitude that you have, but it just takes that work.
Mm-hmm. Makes me think of is it like Bacon's Rebellion or something? I think is what it's called, where like at the time, right, everybody that wasn't like, what I think was it like English specifically and Protestant were basically slaves, like Irish, Italians, but also Black, Native Americans, all of that, right? We were all slaves and we were equally, right, treated as such, which also meant, and like we were together, right? Like slaves, like as slaves, you're together. And so then we were able to come together and like rebel. The rebellion failed, but within that is where basically like sort of this idea of racial hierarchy kind of really began. Yeah. Where they said, in order to make sure that that kind of rebellion didn't happen, because that would be like incredibly something, like that would be something that couldn't be stopped, right? They got lucky that one time, but if they really, like, if everybody really got together, that wouldn't happen again. Truly. And so they said, all right, we're going to take all these white people here and be like, you're going to get punished, but you're not going to get punished as bad as these Black and Indigenous people. Mm-hmm. And that created this space, and that's that space of like, you can make a poor white man believe that they're better than a poor Black man, or I think it might have been part of the quote or whatever it was, right? Yeah. And like that's where this idea started. Mm-hmm. When we really just on the same playing field, and we need to come together and beat these motherfuckers up. Right.
Because if you don't believe what we're saying, I mean, look at what a lot of Republicans were saying when Obama was running for president, and that's all you got to hear. I mean, that's all you got to think of to realize that, yeah, they'd rather keep everybody down. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. The last question here that we got is, or sorry, do you have any other things you want to say? The last question here that we got is, how can we ensure the idea of ourselves and people are not internalized racism? And I think that where that all starts is like having honest conversations with yourself and in the communities that you want to be a part of, because You can't be a true ally if you're not listening to the people around you. You can't be really for the liberation of everybody if you're not really for everybody. So it's important that we give voices to the disenfranchised. We give voices and we listen. We listen. We have to listen. Like, that's where it really comes down to. And then also, don't be afraid to admit you were wrong. We're all human. We can be wrong. It just matters about what you do about you being wrong. Do you learn? Do you learn from it? I think that there is a bit of, I don't know if there's an answer for how we ensure, what we have to do to ensure that our youth aren't growing up with these internalized racist thoughts is that we create an anti-racist environment for our community, for our youth, so that they know that is how it is. So they know nothing else. You know what I mean? So when they do hear something racist, that it's like, no, I can't, like, that goes against my whole being. We need to be moving out here with discernment. We need to nip this shit in the bud. That's like, I feel like that's been a constant theme within this book. I feel like is one of the answers to a lot of the main answer to a lot of our issues is we need to nip it in the bud when we hear it, when we see it. And that's with racism, that's with misogyny and the patriarchy, that's with homophobia and any type of any type of hatred, period. Like, it's overall, we just need to nip it in the bud and call it out.
Yeah.
Stop it right there, because when we do that, you're creating a better space for you in the future, because you never know when you're going to be affected by that, as well as creating a better space for the youth, because not enough of us are talking about what the fuck we're doing for the youth. We have to save the children. Like, fuck, did y'all not hear Marvin Gaye? We gotta do something.
For real.
Because they're only gonna become more desensitized to this shit if we don't start nipping it in the bud. And how that looks like is calling out your friends, calling out your homies, calling out your loved ones. Doing it in the right way, though. Having conversation, leaving open dialogue. But bring them the information. We all got to do the knowledge. Not everybody's going to want to do it. But if they want to be in community with you, do the knowledge. Because it doesn't stop there. Why would you ever put yourself in a situation where you might be in a car with somebody that doesn't understand the real danger of you being pulled over while being black? Or a person of color, period. Why would you put yourself in a situation like that? That's life or death. Or any other situation. You gotta know. We gotta be open in the conversation. We gotta be open to ask questions too. And then when we ask questions, we also gotta be open to be given, like, thoughtful and honest answers that are beneficial to all parties, and be considerate. All this is like, I think that it starts with doing the knowledge, and then we create our community, create the environment for our people, for everybody. And we continue to push that message. And when we hear anything else, any other type of hate, we nip it in the bud. Take that root, rip the weed out from the root. That's the only way you can deal with that. That's the only way you deal with a weed. It's going to continue to grow if you don't take it out by the root. And that is what internalized racism is. Because you may not even know it, but that motherfucker done took over your garden by the time you look at it next time, if you continue to just let these things slide and fester. I think another issue, I don't know where this, I don't remember what question this answers, but I do want to talk about this. We need to stop acting like this nigga Trump is the first one to do these things in modern history. To say these things. Like, yeah, Bill Clinton may have not posted a picture on Twitter to call us a monkey. Or call Barack Obama a monkey, right? He probably would have if he could.
He said a lot of fuck shit, though.
But that nigga was on some bullshit. Now we got here, what does he say? The so-called first black president. Oh, this is on page 93. The so-called first black president followed suit. It isn't racist for whites to say they don't understand why people put up with gangs on the corner or in their projects or with drugs being sold in the schools or in the open, said President Clinton in 1995. It's not racist for whites to assert the culture of welfare dependency out of wedlock pregnancy and absent fatherhood cannot be broken by social programs unless there is first more personal responsibility. If you didn't hear Carl Linnaeus speaking from the fucking dead, that's Carl Linnaeus speaking from the damn dead. Like, point blank, period.
Yeah.
He's using these terms to create an image for you. Just because he didn't say specifically welfare queen, but he said the definition of welfare queen by saying welfare dependent, welfare dependency.
Was it out of welfare dependency, something, pregnancy out of wedlock?
Yeah. And it's just like, are you fucking kidding me, dog? I just don't even, I ain't got the, there are no words. Stop acting like this shit's brand new. It ain't. It ain't brand new.
Been acting like that ain't something crazy. No, that is crazy. Especially because white people use welfare more than anybody else, which is totally fine,
Right.
and is expected because they take up the vast majority of this country, anyways.
And I'm fine with my tax dollars paying for a little white baby. Sorry.
Fine with my taxpayer dollars paying for any baby, because
Right.
any baby,
Right.
because babies deserve to have the things that they need to live and survive, and dare I say, just thrive and be able to get things that they want rather than need.
Right.
Why is it not okay for children to actively have things that they want?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it not okay for people to occasionally have things that they want?
Right.
Why is it constantly that we always have to suffer?
Right.
That's weird behavior for you to want people to suffer.
Yeah.
Whether you suffered or not. Why did you have to suffer? Hot take, you shouldn't have had to suffer either.
Right.
Doesn't mean that you should make other people suffer because of it.
I think that people need to get that through their head. I don't know why they don't get that. I thought we're all supposed to want better for the youth, for the future, we're supposed to just want better for ourselves. And if your parents didn't do that for you, then you do it for yourself, and then you do it for your kids, and your kids do it for themselves, and then they do it for their kids, and so on and so forth. But
and if that means that the single mom buys some steaks for her and her kids just because, with her EBT card, the God forbid.
Right.
Shit ain't that crazy. Let them
Everybody
babies eat
deserves
steak.
it. Right. Everybody deserves to have a little bit of like comfortability in their life. Everybody deserves to be comfortable. Now, nobody deserves to live their life in constant discomfort, because that is traumatizing. That is traumatizing to the body, the mind, the soul. And if y'all don't, I mean, but that's I feel like we're going off topic. Well, I think that was a good conversation. I think that was a good conversation of section 3. I didn't get too turned up.
No, not this time.
I feel like that might be because I'm a little tired, but
Maybe next time, though.
yeah, maybe next time, because we got our questions for next time for section 4, chapters 9 and 11.
Yeah.
9 through 11. Sorry.
Yeah, something like that.
All right, so the first chapter is chapter 9, and that is color. We have chapter 10, which is white, and chapter 11, which is black. The first question that we got for chapter 9 is, how can we broaden and extend beauty standards?
The next question is, what can we do to ensure that we don't fall into colorist behaviors?
Chapter 10, white. How can we be more productive with voting and helping people get access to voting?
The next question is, how would society look if it no longer centered white people?
And then on to chapter 11, black. How can we make it possible to not divide ourselves into inferior and superior?
And then our last question is, when and how can we start to allow ourselves to realize that black people and people of color have limited systemic power, and start holding the ones in these positions accountable when they don't implement anti-racist policies?
And don't forget that we would really appreciate any of your responses. You can reach out to our social media, our email, or drop a comment of any of your answers or your opinions on any of the matters that we discussed or any of the matters in the books. If you have any advice or any suggestions for the show, feel free to reach out too. We appreciate all of you. And for the first time, we're going to be telling you one of our submissions from one of our listeners. So thank you for your submission, and here goes the submission.
All right. So this commenter said that they wanted to try and answer the question of African Americans and Africans. And so that question was, why is there so much animosity between African Americans and Africans? And so they responded with, the reason there's a rift between the two is the great divide in egos. I believe Africans think that they are better because they are from the homeland, so they feel tried and true, whereas African Americans' ego comes from, we are better because we have everything in America, or we have better everything in America than Africa. Africans probably do consider us traitors because once we were free, we didn't come back to the homeland. It's pretty damn close to the house nigga in the field nigga. Both are the same thing in the end. Black. Once we can realize that in the end the world sees us as black and get our egos in check.
Yeah, I think I'd overall agree. I'd overall agree with that ending, especially like, yeah, we're all black at the end of the day, so that's really what matters. Like I said before in one of the past episodes, at the end of the day, it don't matter if you're one of our African brothers or sisters or any of our African family from the homeland, or you're our African family from the Caribbean, from the anywhere in the Americas. If you're killed by the state, they will come to your home and identify you to your loved one as a black body. you will be written down in your autopsy report as a black body. If there's a news, if it's on the news, they will report it as a black body. They might add some other things into it too, whether you were that or not, which isn't even the important thing. So I think that's an important, that's the most important thing to understand. And once we understand that, I think we can start doing the healing that needs to happen between us, because we have way more in common than we're different. And I think that I think that I don't know if I agree with they look at us as traitors because we didn't go back to the homeland. Because I think there's an understanding. I think there's an understanding of like, yeah, you can't just up and move. Because,
right.
Right.
That's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, I think the average person overall believes or understands that you just can't up and leave, but I could see there being an animosity towards the way that Black Americans look at the homeland, because man, them damn one commercials that used to pop up all the damn time did a fucking number on people, and it's fucked up. It's fucked up. Like that's not the reality of majority of Africa. Like it just ain't. Majority of Africa is like, there's people who are thriving, and I was a victim of those things. And I actually recently had a conversation with one of my African brothers with like, since I knew him from like elementary school, and I was like, yo, I don't remember specifically, but if I ever said anything out of pocket towards you because of your African heritage, then that's my fault, and I was wrong for that, and I apologize for that, because we have to unlearn that. And you shouldn't have enough, like, let go of your ego and pride. Not saying to you, some person who's submitting this, but like, we all have to let go of our ego and pride and start admitting when we say some fucked up shit. We do fucked up things. We didn't know something. We didn't realize that was a fucked up way to say this, or that this was a slur, or that this was derogatory, or if this is this or that. Once you can actually just admit it, own up to it, and just be like, yeah, I'm sorry. I will do better, and learn from it, and continue to do that, and incorporate that in your everyday life, then I think that's what we can do to make it
I think that's the
better.
biggest space of just about creating community with one another. It would be a crazy idea to think that you're never going to make mistakes, you're never going to say anything, or like just the idea that you've said things in the past that are just wrong. And so being able to like actually create community means that you need to own up to the things that you've said in the past, or maybe that you might say in the future. Right. And learn from your mistakes, but also on the opposite end, you need to like be able to accept those things, and then we need to work on what it means to move forward, right? Because like moving forward doesn't just happen necessarily apologizing sometimes, right? When harm has been done, sometimes it takes a little bit of extra work, but like really, like, that's how community is actively made. Yeah, it's conversations, and we gotta hold each other accountable. And when somebody holds you accountable, don't get in your feelings about it. Take it on the chin. Be like, if you're truly an ally, there is no issue with somebody telling you like, hey, that hurt my feelings, because it ain't about your feelings if you're sitting here making somebody uncomfortable. Their existence being uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Right. Like, that ain't it. And if we want to create better environments for everybody, that's where it starts, man. We thank you all again for joining us here at the Off The Shelf Book Club. It has been another great section. We look forward to seeing y'all with section 4, chapters 9 through 11.
Check out those questions. Make sure you drop your comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow us on all of our social media. We greatly appreciate it. We'll catch you next week. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. A peace of mind, great health and wealth. Ashe.
Ashe.
I write it to people, baby.
To truly choose to love is heroic.
Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people. And we're going to have to put it back in the hands of the people.